Hello, welcome to this episode of Krystel Clear. Today we have a special guest, Erica Quillen. Thank you, Erica, for being here. She's one of my health and fitness peers, turned mind, body, spirit, soul sister-esque. So welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Krystel. I'm so excited to be here, and I feel like this has been like a long time coming in a way, but it's always perfect time. So thank you.
Awesome. I know, I feel like we've serendipitously met and kind of been in similar flows throughout periods. We met at Lululemon several years ago and then ran into you at Pure Bar. And I don't know, I always felt like there was like an instant connection there. And now I see you kind of at the gym all the time.
Yeah.
So like you said, long time coming. I'm
Yeah.
glad we're here and in this space. And I feel like more so not just in this space on the podcast, but in this space in life. And that's kind of what we're going to unravel for everyone today. And
Yeah.
if you'd like to just tell us a little bit about what you have going on in your world now, and then we might back it up and push it forward and all the things.
Yes, 100%. I am a health coach, which is what we're going to talk about today a lot through Feel Good with Erica. That is my business. But more importantly, I am a mom of a 2-year-old little girl and a wife. My husband and I have been together for 13 years.
Oh,
So we've been
wow.
together for all of our 20s and now, into our early 30s. And it has been kind of like we were talking about the podcast before the podcast, like just such a journey of, change and different seasons and even, really going through that too, like personally and through my business as a mom now and what my body maybe needed before and what it needs now and just different, seasons of life. And so that is through my business as well, kind of how I started was getting ready for my own wedding and what I needed to do to prepare for that big day. And lots of backstory there that I'm sure we'll dive into. But the trajectory of my business has ebbed and flowed as my life has ebbed and flowed. So really started seeing a lot of bridal clients, focusing on yes, getting to the goal weight, the goal body to fit in the dress on your big day, but more importantly, really changing the way you think about food and the why, behind that reasoning and really educating people on the science of food. And, for me, when I really started to learn about food and how it worked in our body, why I was maybe craving things or why I maybe wasn't feeling like I could get through workouts, that was what really unlocked so many of the problems I personally faced through yo-yo dieting over the years. And so it really started through those bridal clients. And then it was kind of this crazy thing where it was like this person, saw the success and then told her sister and then her sister's mom. And then I was working with, all these different families of all different ages. And then we kind of got, okay, we get all the brides married and then we get ready for pregnancy and then really supporting a healthy pregnancy and then postpartum. And so that has been primarily, the last few years of my life and what has also been transpiring through my business. And so I really help women. That's primarily who I'm working with. I do have a few males that I've helped throughout my years as well. But I'm really just so passionate about helping women realize that healthy doesn't have to be so hard, that it is so much more than just food. But as long as you can really kind of understand the basics, and I like to really dumb down science because I am someone who it takes me a long time to learn things. I really have to apply myself. Like things don't just naturally come easy to me. And so really being able to have this problem that I solved for myself and solving that through other people has just been, I think, so life changing. And now, I say like my biggest goal is that, a little girl on the playground is going to say to Zamora one day, like, your mommy changed my mommy's life,
I'm gonna cry.
and like, because I know like that it's generational,
Yeah.
and like, our parents did the best that they could. And now like, I know that I have a responsibility, especially having a daughter first. Like, I think God makes no mistakes and that it is so much, it's not about me, it's about how can I help these other women change the way their daughters look at food and then the way that their grandchildren are going to look at food. Because no matter what, I like to say it's the one thing that you literally cannot escape in your life.
Right.
You never have to, we think about alcohol, we think about drugs, we think about, all these problems that people have. You cannot run away from food. And so that has really been my specialty the last 5th year of my business now. But I've been dealing with this since I was 15. I just turned
Right.
32, And so when we think about how long something has lasted in our life, it's like, let's get good at the thing we're going to have to do forever. So,
Right.
yeah.
I love you. And thank you so much, first of all, for such an in-depth explanation, because it can be so complex. But as you said, it can be very basic as well.
Totally.
And I think that especially right now with so much out there, there's so many resources pulling you this way and that way. And, this is good for you and that's good for you. But honestly, it's so individual and it's such a unique experience for each person. I know for myself, especially postpartum with Brody, I had to set a goal and set something for myself. I wasn't feeling myself in my body. I didn't have the lifestyle I had prior to, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
was always kind of had in my mind that I needed to just like go hard, go home, work hard person,
Yeah.
and depriving myself of nutrients I really needed, even throughout college, understanding like I educated myself through exercise science, nutrition, but honestly, the nutrition classes I took in college are not what my body needed. It's
Right.
not, it's just so complex. And so I've learned over time what's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you're putting your energy and your effort and your time into that because it is generational.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, I mean, we live in a world where it's from like we're all over the place. But it doesn't mean we have to be that way. It doesn't mean we have to eat fast food if we're on the run.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we can't make healthier choices.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more components that go to it, like our adrenals,
Mm-hmm.
our hormones, and
Mm-hmm.
all the things. And understanding that putting the right nutrients in your body and the right amount of food in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the first time I ever went on a macronutrient counting program? I was eating twice as much as I had ever eaten in my whole life.
Yep.
And I was in the best shape I had ever been in.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I grew up seeing women dieting and withholding food. And what does that do? That really lowers your basal metabolic rate. Like it
Yes.
really lowers your set point metabolism.
Yes.
So then when you do start eating normally,
Yeah.
you're going to gain weight because there's like that fluctuation there. Like our bodies burn so much by doing nothing.
Right. Right. And that is like when I break that down for people and just for the audience, like, basal metabolic rate is essentially the amount of calories that your body needs at rest for your heart to beat, your eyes to blink, your body to just get through the day.
Yeah.
Right. And so, when I tell people like, listen, you not eating, you eating as little as possible doesn't impress me. Like
No.
when I'm looking at your food log, like I'm not looking for that. In fact, I want you to add more, and
Mhm.
going through that, people are of course scared because most often clients are coming to me to lose weight, to, really specialize in fat loss. And so when we talk about that, it feels really scary because it is scary, right? Like it's like, okay, I hired this girl and now she's telling me to eat more. But what really we need to focus on is eating more of the good stuff, right? Because when we think about that macronutrient profile, a lot of the times, we're under eating the things that actually help us really feel those satiety cues, which I always like to say, the number one reason for overeating is under eating.
Right.
And so that's where we get that yo-yo dieting. That's where we get that binge cycle,
Cravings,
all of the
sugar
cravings,
cravings,
and then
especially.
not to mention, the anxiety that can come with that, the energy dips, just not being able to get through the day,
Blood sugar dysregulation.
100%. Yeah. And so blood sugar is really what I start with all the clients because learning to balance my blood sugar is the thing that changed my life when it came to food because I had tried macros, over 10 years ago and I had no real like understanding of what needed to be on the plate. It was like, okay, I can have this amount of carbs, this amount of protein, and this amount of fat. That's what makes up our, macronutrient profile. And of course the carbs are always going to be more fun, And so I'd end up with eating all my carbs like this, having no energy, and then being like, okay, well, what do I do? Eat all this protein now? And it wasn't until I really learned what goes into balancing blood sugar and then feeling the effects energetically, emotionally, physically, like that really changed the game for me, and that's an important thing for people to know too, is our metabolisms are incredible. And when you start feeding your body, your body will respond well. And you were in the best shape of your life because you were giving your body enough energy to do what you were asking it to do, And so I worked with, clients with eating disorders, clients, you had lots of different, disordered eating, even, right? Two different things, but similar trajectories. And it is such a mind mess.
Yeah.
But it is truly life-changing when you're able to really like dissect what it is that is happening. And I think that, it's something that if you really allow yourself to learn, you will feel the difference, long term. And it's crazy because it's different than everything we've ever been taught or watched.
Absolutely. And there's so much out there that can be like, you're not going to learn everything you need to know about your body on a 15-second TikTok.
Right.
So my biggest push for people is like invest in yourself, whether it's like your mental health or your physical health, but they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. So if you can find something that is all encompassing, which is exactly like what you're doing for people, and you have that accountability, and that's essentially what mine was. It was like 16 weeks straight. I did my macros, and me having the background, I knew what type of macros to eat. So just for the audience, macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, proteins.
Yep.
So
no matter what you eat, it gets broken down into those three things.
Right.
Yeah.
And knowing which ones to eat. Carbohydrates can be things like sandwiches and bread and pasta, but depending on what, or it
and
could
fruit.
And fruit.
Yeah.
But it could be greens and vegetables. And so it really just depends. And like you said, you could do a macro diet, but if you're eating all bread carbs and then you're eating, so it's that your body responds so differently. To all the things. So if you could kind of give us like a sample plan, just so people kind of understand, what we're talking about here.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, when we think about that too, like backtrack for a second of like it being, a full 360 approach in a way, that is really what I do with my clients and the girls in my group program. Is we're not just talking about food, because oftentimes everything that's happening in our life will dictate like the choices we're making when it comes to what we're grabbing, whether that's going through Chick-fil-A or finishing, the bottle of wine, or doing like what's going on in our life is truly at the end of the day so much more important than just what's on your plate, because they go so hand in hand. And so a lot of the times now, I just hit my 3-year anniversary with 3 of my clients in September. And it's because now, it's so much more than just like, okay, I want to drop a few pounds. I've walked through so many different seasons of these people's lives with them. The good things, the marriage and the this, and then maybe, a death, and then a miscarriage or a divorce, or really like hard time at work, and like how that's affecting, what's happening in their body. And so when we're going through a big stress time, it's not going to be the time to like go to Orange Theory hardcore doing, I don't need to know how fast you're running. Like I don't actually want you to be running at all, because your body has so much cortisol.
I need you to go and put your feet in the grass and just close your eyes.
Literally, like I actually need you to like go do that, or go to the beach and go for a walk and like chill out, because our bodies are not meant to handle everything. Even the information that's coming at us, like that we can go on TikTok and learn so much at one time, go on Instagram, listen to this podcast while, you're doing a million other things. It's information overload. Right. Yeah. And so what I really have, figured out works for people over time is to focus on the good stuff, you know?
Right.
And so this is Feel Good with Erica.
Mhm.
That came from wanting to feel good in my body and in my life, because I found that the two were so deeply intertwined. And so when we think about back to those macronutrients, we have our proteins, we have our fat, and we have our carbohydrates. What I really like to do, no matter kind of where you're starting with, is focusing on the good stuff. So we really want to start with protein. That is a
Mhm.
pillar of my food philosophy.
Right.
So
Same.
protein, these are the things like, for thinking in the morning, a scoop of protein powder that doesn't have a million ingredients in
Right.
it. I am a fan of, Greek yogurt and cottage cheese if you can
Mhm.
handle
Same.
dairy. These are things like chicken, lean beef, salmon, shrimp, even sprinkling in, even though they're more carbohydrate, right? But like things like lentils, like I just had some
Mhm.
lentils on my salad, black beans, like they have protein in them, but they're more
Mhm.
carby, right?
Right.
So, really focusing on, do you have protein on your plate first? Right. And, using your hand. Like, I think
Mhm.
macros are a great tool for people. I have, a lot of, like, I go back and forth of like, okay, are macros going to be the thing for everyone? And we're eating macros no matter what, but the
Right.
numbers really do get to people. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
this
it can be
were
time consuming and
100,
overwhelming. Like, we
right.
could be obsessive with it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like, okay, let's make it simple. Utilize your
Palm
palm.
of your
Like,
hand.
if you
Yes.
can really start to be like, okay, like my hand is perfect for the portion size that I
Mhm.
need, that's going to be, on average, I really like to have 25, 30 grams of protein per
Yeah.
meal.
Yeah.
And that's just from your protein source.
Right.
Right. And so for clients listening too, it's important to realize that, you know, protein, there's a little bit of protein in peanut butter,
Right.
right?
But
But
there's a lot of fat in peanut butter as
peanut butter
well.
is what we do a fat source, right? And
Yes.
so thinking of, when you look at that nutrition label, what does it say it is mostly?
Mhm.
And then really pulling that as your protein. So,
Mhm.
again, chicken, we know that it's gonna have 0 carbs, maybe a couple grams of fat, but that number that's highest on the nutrition label is gonna be chicken. So that's gonna be your protein source.
Right.
And then, we go into fat, and fat is, super important for making sure that we stay full.
Mhm.
So these are the things like olive oil, avocado, olives, thinking of those yummy, delicious, flavorful things that
Mhm.
keep things fun. And again, use your thumb. So
Mhm.
top of the thumb, that's going to be about 1 serving, right? So you want to have that in there, and granted, depending on how, what meat you choose, you may need a little bit more, may need a little bit less. Everyone's a little bit different, but we're just talking in general. Like, as
Right.
we say, it's personalized. And then we've got our greens and our veggies. And so I think that those, again, focusing on the addition, opening up that palm. So
Mhm.
nice big palm, and really trying to, can you add a handful of arugula? Can you add a handful of spinach in your smoothie? Can you add, a side of broccoli if you're out to dinner, and just really focusing on that addition, because that's where we're going to get the stretch of your stomach, which is really important for that gut brain access in
Right.
in our body to signal that we're full. And
Right.
so I really encourage people, listen, add these things to your plate first. The rest is going to fall into place.
Yes.
This isn't a no carb approach. This isn't a don't eat carbs.
Right.
I had to go through like a whole, and I'm sure get back to that, just about, you being pregnant and me
Yeah.
being pregnant. You know, my thyroid was affected
Yeah.
postpartum,
Same.
A, because postpartum, but B, because I just was so used to eating low carb that
Mhm.
I didn't even realize I just needed more to support what my body now needed
Yeah.
in that season. Right. And so what I always like to say though is, no one's ever coming to me like, hey, I'm I'm not comfortable in my body and I'm eating these things, right?
Mhm.
Because we know that the chips at the Mexican restaurant are going to happen, or the bread at the
Mhm.
table, or the glass of wine, or the mac and cheese, right? Like,
Mhm.
those carbier things are always going to be around, right? Like, whatever maybe your kid or your
Mhm.
husband's eating, like my husband loves Annie's mac and cheese.
So are
And
my kids.
I mean, it's just like, I can't blame him, right? And so it's like, we know that those carbier things are going to be around. So what I really like to say is like, just focus on the good stuff first.
Right.
We'll sort that stuff out later. But what often happens is you're actually able to get full from the feel good formula because those things work to your satiety. And so automatically, maybe when you used to overeat, whether it be bread, French fries, too many of the extras, as I like to call them, is you're able to actually eat them in the proper portion size
Right.
because the things that your body actually needs, we need those amino acids from our
Mhm.
protein to regulate half of our hunger hormones.
And to digest properly.
100%. And to also support that basal metabolic rate.
Right.
So that's what's so problematic too about these people who are doing the yo-yo dieting is if you're not eating enough protein, you're losing muscle mass.
Right.
And if you're not doing anything once you hit like 35 to increase your muscle mass, you're automatically losing it. So
Mhm.
anyone listening who's maybe not strength training and they're eating maybe, they look at that palm and they're like, maybe I'm eating that once-ish, twice-ish a day.
I would die.
Same, but like then they beat themselves up at night
Right.
thinking that something's wrong with them.
Mhm.
And that's where I just say, listen, everything that you're eating has led you here as it should. It's
Right.
not a you like
Mhm.
this isn't your fault. This is just, we have to shift those macronutrient levels. So I really, again, focus on that addition of like, what can we add to your plate? And then that naturally just crowds out the things where clients will be like, oh my God, like I didn't really even crave like my sour candies that I crave after dinner
Mhm.
or that sweet treat that I always have. Like it was actually a choice to have ice cream with my kids that I didn't feel guilty about. And
Right.
that's what I'm about.
And I
Like,
woke up in the morning and I didn't feel inflamed and that's the big thing
yes,
that I've realized over the years because I've gotten I did have the eating disorder when
Right.
I was a kid.
right.
I went through different levels of that. And not only did I withhold food, but I also had what they call exercise bulimia, which is I didn't
Orthorexia.
yes, I
type of-
didn't I didn't purge my food, but I would exercise if I ate something.
Mhm.
I almost had to I conditioned my brain to have to work for food.
Right. Right.
I mean, and no wonder I have adrenal fatigue, okay?
Yeah.
Here and
Yeah.
almost I'll be 40 next year.
Yeah.
And so really conditioning myself to understand your body and this is the way I explain it even to my kids, my teenagers.
Yeah.
They go to school so early, they have lunch at 10, it's hard for them to even have an appetite until they're finished with school at 2. And I'm like, okay, I know that you're not hungry, but I'm going to pack you something anyway.
Yeah.
Just try.
Yeah.
Try to drink the protein shake. Try to get something down.
Yeah.
Because what happens, yes, there's intermittent fasting and
Yeah.
there's all of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there going on.
Which I am
However,
a fan of fasting.
I am too.
Again, very personalized on
Yes.
where you're at in life, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you're eating in that fasting window.
Right.
Yeah.
But it really directly affects your brain performance.
Right.
And that was something that I've known about myself. I remember, they diagnosed me with ADHD and I'm like, I didn't have ADHD.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it was PTSD and some symptoms from that, but I just was not nurturing my body appropriately
Mhm.
during certain times of my life. And then when I started to, the more fats and proteins you eat, the better you think. Your
Yes.
mind is sharp.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to cut out a ton of stuff. I've never really had an issue with dairy. But I kind of go through phases with everything. I
Same.
just kind of honor what my body feels like it needs.
Wait,
And
you mean you listen to your body?
I listen to my body
Right,
now.
Right.
Now I listen to my
Right.
body.
But isn't that crazy that the journey that it took for
Yeah.
you to actually just be like, oh my God,
Mhm.
my body is telling me what it feels.
Right.
I'm going to listen to it.
And honoring and making healthy choices along the way. So if
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, I could really eat some ice cream now. I'll do Greek yogurt with a little sprinkle of honey, mix it up. It's fine.
Yeah.
So just making sure that I honor what it might need. So if I'm craving dairy or something like that, maybe I need more calcium that day. Maybe I need, the nutrients that are in the foods you're craving.
Yeah.
It's kind of where your blood sugar is just dysregulated and
Yeah.
you just need a lot of water. And sometimes that's just it too.
Yeah.
Is I didn't drink enough water for 25 years of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. You and literally that's what first week homework assignment is we get water,
Yes.
right where it needs to be. And it's so common.
Mhm.
And again, that's what I just like to really listeners hear that is like, it's not a you thing. It is this is just what happens when we're not being mindful of what our body really needs.
Right.
And oftentimes too, it's like, okay, craving ice cream at night. Like, as I talk about with clients is, okay, if we know that you hit your protein goals, because we know that a lack of protein will literally stimulate carbohydrate cravings in the form of, maybe like my favorite croissants and, like those types of things, but also sweet treats at night, like that, where it kind of like comes up and gets you. But also what's going on in your life. Did you have a stressful day?
Yep.
And it was your one time to yourself, like the kids are to bed, you have a minute to just kind of like sit and you're just like, I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. So I'm just going to feel what was comforting to me as a kid. Right. And so that's another huge component of the work that I've really done. And, how do we, when we grew up, it was like, okay, great, we have a pizza party at, at school. We all did good on the test. Or then you had a bad day. We get,
we get ice cream. Or
right.
Let's reward ourselves with food because we're animals.
Right. No. And it's
I really try not to do that with my kids.
Right. And it's like, it's not bad. Right. Like, because that's the thing too, is like, I love the treats. And that's what, like, I say, like, I love all the health and wellnessy things, but I also love the fun, lifey things. Yeah. Like, I'm not here to never eat ice cream again or to never, like, have pizza. Like, count me out if pizza's out. Like,
pizza's a non-negotiable for me.
Same. And so I really had to figure out, listen, like, especially before the baby, it was like Lucas and I would always do Friday night date night, and we both love pizza. And so we'd make a thing of it. We'd see live music, we'd have pizza, we'd have a great fun time. Yeah. And so I had to figure out, like, how can I be healthy, but also, and like feel how I want to feel in my body, but also like live my life.
Right.
Because I remember doing yo-yo diets, back senior year of high school, where I didn't go to, senior breakfast day where, you skip school and everyone goes to breakfast, because I was like, oh my God, well, I can only have a cup of liquid egg whites, and I know that they're going to be using too much oil than what's on my plan. And then, that, and then having another, few years later where I was weighing in with the nutritionist and squash kicked me out of ketosis. And so I didn't drop weight for the year, for that week. Right. And it's like, I have been through it, and I don't ever want to have to not be able to go make a memory because I'm so worried about my macros, or not be able to eat squash because I'm worried about like being like my body being some science experiment,
Right.
And
it's 100%.
like
that created my body my entire life as a science experiment. I still kind of do,
right,
with regulating it, but in a different way.
It's from a different way. There's days I can fast 16 hours, no problem. And then there's days where I'm like, yep, 12, I'm good. Right. Because I'm paying attention. Right. And you use those things to your benefit the more you know, but like, it's been a journey. And I think, like, for me, I thought this was such a me problem for so many years. It's so isolating. And then, once I really kind of got to the root and I really started immersing myself into like this health and wellness world, and then kind of spoke out about a few things. And it's hard, like, even still to this day, when I talk about, it's like, you have to go to that vulnerable place to like make sure the right person ends up in your inbox. Right. But it is not been easy to get here. And like, I just think though, there's something to be said about, I now know hundreds of women who have thought the same exact thoughts that I have, where now they're telling, in tears on the other phone. And I'm like, oh, you're not crazy to me. No. Like, there's nothing at this point that I haven't seen, heard, or done myself.
Same.
And I, like, my oldest client, 58 years old,
and
it's
that
just
makes
like,
me think too, especially with women, like, your hormones and where you are in your month makes a big difference and impact on how you should be utilizing your body, when you should rest your body, how you should eat. I mean, I just started cycle syncing like the past 3 years or so.
Yeah.
A huge difference.
Interesting.
Like before, I would go crazy in the gym for like the 2 weeks before my cycle started. And I'm like, those are the 2 weeks you're supposed to be resting. Like, literally doing that. Like, like the week of, it's like, okay, napping is appropriate.
Yeah.
And so when I understood that, it's like, wow, my body responded like immediately. to just understanding. And that also has to do with like what's going on in your head,
Yeah.
why you could be more prone to more environmental stress during
Yeah,
those times of the
totally.
month and the cycles that you go through. And I mean, a woman's body is so complex. Like it takes us like a whole month to get through what guys do in like 24 hours,
100%.
which
I would say I'll look at my husband. I'm
like
like,
there's
you
no
really love me, don't
yeah.
you? Just of like all the different things, because that was a thing too. Like I actually, after I had some more, and I even kind of forgot about this, where I run on the low side of progesterone.
Yeah.
And so like I had estrogen dominance
Mhm.
before I got pregnant with her, that I was like working with a functional medicine doctor,
Mhm.
and really getting that. And then, even after, I was just like, not feel again, like obviously I wasn't gonna feel like myself, right? Like you
Mhm.
said, after Brody, you didn't feel like yourself. Like we just gave birth, right? Like
Right.
we literally just grew a human,
And
and
you're
then
not
you're like,
yourself.
yeah,
Like you're a different you.
you're never gonna
Like
be
yeah,
your
but you're just a new version of you.
exactly,
And that's okay.
exactly. And like I remember being like, I know that I don't have postpartum depression or postpartum
Right.
anxiety, but I just don't feel right. Like I'm like manic. And then, I was talking to my OB, and we got back on the progesterone, where days 10 through 28 of my cycle, I put it on before I go to bed. And it really is made such a difference. And I
Mhm.
think that, again, just learn. No one taught us this stuff in
No.
school.
Well, and
And that's what
yes.
is infuriating to me, especially
Yeah.
now as a mom. And like, it's just like, no one taught us these things, and it
Or
requires
our
you.
parents or the
Right,
ladies before them
right.
or like we don't learn these things.
No,
We should be
about
learning these things in like 6th, 7th grade.
100%. Like your period isn't just, okay, you're bleeding now, here's a tampon
No.
or a pad, like,
No.
and then it'll come again in a month. Like your cycle is so much more than
Mhm.
that. And that's what's been just so interesting too, of like, I got my IUD taken out a year before getting pregnant with
Yeah.
Zamora, and really balancing, just everything in my system, and, learning about ovulation, and learning about, okay, great. Same thing where, I tell a client like, okay, if you stepped on the scale, for using scale as a measurement, where were you at in your cycle? Because there
Mhm.
is such thing as water retention
Oh,
before ovulation. So
oh
you
god,
can
yeah.
look 4 pounds heavier than you were, simply because where you were in your
Yeah, your
cycle.
clothes fit
Your
differently.
yeah.
Just no. And so just having that, there's a couple apps that I've used. One is My
Yeah,
Flow.
that's what I have too.
Yeah,
And then
and
I
I
do
forget the other one. No. But there's a couple apps you can use if
yeah.
people are interested in what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or you could just Google like best app for cycle syncing or
Yeah.
regulating and understanding what's going on. Because also even the way your brain functions.
Yeah.
And so this is too. Oh, we could go on like a whole new
Yeah. Yeah.
we could have a whole series of podcasts about
Yes.
this.
Yes.
But going to your point that we don't learn these things in school. So not only does like the time of the month when you should be eating, when you should be exercising, but also like creativity or when to take mental breaks or
Yeah.
the fact that we even need to take mental breaks.
Yeah.
Seeing this generation of, so I have 3 kids in high school. You could not pay me any infinite amount of money or time to go into this world right now as a teenager. Like I felt like I was overstimulated as a teenager, and my daughter's even said, she's like, I just want to go back to like the way you grew up. You guys
Yeah.
had the best generation.
Yeah.
Like it was chill. You still had a cell phone. You could call or text, but you
Yeah.
hung out with your friends.
Yeah.
I think she's like, no one could track you down. She doesn't
Right.
say that, but
Right. We could get away with so much
we
more
could get
stuff
away
back
with
then. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it wasn't the constant overstimulation. We actually just had
Yeah.
this conversation the other day. It's now they can have their phones in high school. And I'm glad I couldn't because I mean, even just I have to put mine away when I do things and I have to like really discipline myself.
Yeah.
So
Same.
not only are they sitting and
I told you
trying
at
to
the gym,
retain,
I was like, my
yeah,
phone's on do not disturb when I'm at the
yeah,
gym, because otherwise
you get
I'm going in all,
distracted.
yeah.
And
So
you're not in the place that you're in.
yeah.
So not only are they receiving information from what they're supposed to be learning, but it's like constant notifications and
Right.
constant like it's listening to your AirPods. And I think a big kind of epidemic we have right now is we are just so overstimulated all the time. And doing something like this, prioritizing your health, whether it
Yeah.
be with an accountability coach, an empowerment coach, a health and wellness program, or all of the above, or just turning all your notifications off on your phone.
Oh, that's part of my program. We do social setup.
Yes, that's
And
perfect.
all notifications are like, unless you're getting texts or phone calls or, emails, even like, you're not getting Instagram notifications. You're not getting Facebook notifications. You're not getting someone every time someone likes your whatever, because it's just too much. And
It's
that's
too
what, like,
much.
I even think, postpartum, especially when you're learning so much about, like, I grew up an only child, really small
Mhm.
family, like, it was all so new to me. And
Mhm.
so it was like all so amazing, but it was very new. And so that overwhelm of all the newness and then even just all the things coming at you at one time, you like, I've recently still two, Zamora just turned 2 in at the end of June. And it's like, this summer, I just started listening to a podcast again this week where I've just been listening to music and I've
Mhm.
just been like being a human being, because we have so much coming at us all
All the
the
time.
time. We're like, we have gotten so far away of like being a human
And being grounded
and
and rooted in our
where
bodies,
we're
and
not
that's
meant
yeah.
to handle this,
No,
right?
we're
Like
not made for
we're
this.
we're we're really not. And like I feel so bad for these kids, especially because I'm sitting here 32 years old and I feel like overwhelmed with,
Yeah.
even if it's the good stuff, right? Like it's
Right.
like I call it positive overwhelm, where it's just
Yeah.
so much, and then I'm like, "Oh my god, I have to literally text like 4 people back and I have to do this and I have to do that."
Mhm.
And it's not, it just is so much at one time
Right.
sometimes. And I saw this thing today on Instagram where it was like, we are the last generation that knows what life was like without social media.
Right. And, like, I wouldn't change it for the world.
No, me either. And
And
that's
I
what
feel like I don't know,
it
I feel like something will come along, though. I feel like things always work themselves out the way they're
totally,
supposed to. My husband's
totally.
convinced the power grid is going out, so
Yeah.
maybe it's something not quite as extreme,
Yeah.
but
Nothing would surprise me. But
no.
yeah.
And surrendering to the flow,
Yeah.
but also prioritizing what works for you. And like you said, you just got back to just listening to stuff. I took a
Yeah.
6-week break,
Yep.
very intentional time with my family over the summer, really downtime for the kids, and
Yeah.
just tried not to overschedule a lot. We did take a
Yeah.
big trip to Europe, and that was like our first time doing that as a family, and it
So
was really
awesome.
great. But that also has its ups and downs and all arounds. And I'm realizing like,
And
wow,
that's okay though.
yeah,
Like that's okay.
yeah,
Like it's okay that, like, I think too, it's interesting being, on social media, whether it's personal or professional, but like not everything has to be Instagram worthy,
no. And
right?
not everything
And
has to be
not
put
every
out there. There's something to have an
to
intimate life.
life. They're really, and I really leaned into that. I've taken kind of a big little social siesta, as I call it,
Mhm.
where I'm still on, but I'm just not posting, right?
Right,
Because like, yes, there's power in like, on days when you want to take a walk and you want to put,
right.
and like I love that. But we have gotten, I think, to this place where we're so busy, like looking at other people's lives, that we get so confused about our own.
Well, and the comparison, it's not
Yes.
healthy, and
Yes.
it forces you into this, like, egoic mentality that is so not authentic.
Right.
And
It's just not necessary. And it's like,
no.
how, of course you're going to have ups and downs on a trip with kids and a husband and
Yeah,
across the world in a
yeah.
different time zone, different, like every, like, of course.
But
Of
the way that
course.
you avoid getting caught up in that, for me, was not setting expectations for it.
Right.
Just
Oh, that,
going
oh
and being
girl.
like, "We're gonna have slow mornings,
Yeah.
and whoever wants to get up and go to breakfast, will get up and go to breakfast."
Awesome.
I plan a couple things each day, but just being realistic with myself and the time period that we had and everything that we did, and also really trying to honor where
Yeah.
everyone was. I mean,
Yeah.
our kids are 17 to 4.
Right.
So, there's a lot of different aspects going on there,
Yeah.
and as long as our we balanced it well, which was good, but coming back, I wanted it to just be slow and intentional, and even my daughter was like, "Mom, I don't wanna do surf camp," because she had this IMG volleyball camp that she did, then we had Switzerland, and she's like, I don't wanna do that this year." I'm like, "Okay, then don't."
Okay. Yeah.
And I was so proud of her for
For sa
honoring that. I
And
would have
how
never
awesome,
at her
no, I was
age.
just about to
I would
say
have been
how
like, "Oh, I have to
awesome
go. I
that
have to
she
do
could say
this."
that. Like,
Yes.
that, just a testament to you, like,
Well, thank you.
seriously, because I think that, like, we are allowed to change our minds.
100%.
And like you doing that for her at her age shows her that like, hey, like maybe I was into this idea a few months
Or
ago
I
or
did it
when
a couple
mom.
years in a row and it was
Right.
fun.
Right.
However, this season it's
It's
different.
different. And that I think too, like for me and my journey, it's like it's been hard to allow myself
Yeah.
to evolve because this is what worked, or this is what I am comfortable being, or this is what everyone else loved me as.
Right.
And like it has been like literally brought me to my knees. I think the biggest thing that got me into therapy last year was because I was like, I'm like I'm so me, and I'm finally like, I think okay with all the parts of me is what's
Mhm.
that gonna be like for
Right.
everyone else, right? And like you just something so simple as like surf camp, not doing surf camp, like that is so awesome
Yeah.
for her, you know?
And her having that, and I think it really comes from her seeing me being like, "No,
It's
I don't." Like, I
yeah,
used to be very heavily involved in philanthropy, and I still am,
yeah,
but in different capacity.
yeah,
Like, I choose my couple
yeah,
things, and I do that. Like, I
yeah.
don't have to do everything all the time for everyone.
Forever.
And
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
own it and I just say, "You know, I'm not attending that this year." They're like, "Oh, we'll miss you. Thank you." No one cares.
No one,
It's us
literally,
that puts
no one
no one cares.
cares.
Like, if
It's
you and
yeah,
I told
yeah,
a friend this the other day
yeah,
because she sent me a text and she sent it by accident. But she sent me this long explanation and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I was
yeah,
like, "We're not going this because blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "Just cut to the chase. No one wants to hear the fluff.
yeah,
Just say, 'Hey, we can't make it.'"
yeah.
And people are like, "Okay, good." I was like, "Especially if it's on a weekend, most people are happy that you cannot make it because
Right,
they get a free time."
right,
I
right.
don't know about you, but I try. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, you have anything fun going on this weekend?" I was like, "We have nothing at all."
Yeah,
Which I'm so excited about
D-
because there's so much that gets packed into our weeks
100%.
that veg days are okay. Because I found myself that because the weeks are busy,
Yeah,
I have to make sure I keep myself in check on the weekends and I'm not creating too much busy
yeah,
because I know I need those days of rest. And I think it goes back to some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier, like habitual reactivity is the thing.
yeah,
Am I doing something because it fuels myself and my soul? And is it what I need right now? Or am I doing something because I've always done it? Or I expect that that's what I'm supposed to do.
yeah.
And I think that going through my journey, I've had to break a lot of habits. Essentially, like I used to get up and go to a HIIT class or a cycle class at
It's
5:45 in the morning.
yeah.
Now I'm like, I think I'll either sleep in or maybe I go for
Just
just a
go for
nature walk and get outside and
literally same.
yeah,
Li-
and it's like, guess what? My body feels better and looks better than it did when I was doing the crazy HIIT classes. And like, you have all day long. Why
Yeah,
do you have to do it at 5 in the
yeah,
morning?
yeah,
But I was realizing, and just because of all of the stuff I've done with my functional medicine doctor, my cortisol was spiked in the morning. So I was waking up in survival mode,
right.
feeling like I needed to run from tigers, but it was like a false sense of energy for me. So I've
Yeah.
conditioned myself now to sleep in
Hmm.
and I feel better sleeping in. I don't wake up at 4:30 and I'm like, "Okay, I got to go do something." And I'm like, "Wow, that means I'm nurturing my adrenals. That means my
Yeah,
body is in balance."
right.
So that's something too that just being aware, and I always encourage my clients to keep more of like how are you feeling journal? Like, how do you
Hmm.
feel when you first wake up?
Yep.
How are you feeling about 10 a.m.?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about noon? Like, kind of keep a mental note for yourself or text yourself during the day. Like, I wake up, I'm up and ready to go, or I'm really groggy until noon and I have to have 3 cups of coffee. Like, that means that there's something else going on inside.
And that's like when I'm starting with the client and we start, our food log is I literally say, this is like, treat it like your journal. Like,
Right.
how do you feel when you're waking up? What is happening? Because again, that's where we're able to see what it is that you're reaching for, or how, let's figure out your wind down routine the night
Mm-hmm.
before and like really kind of set some boundaries around there, which I know is difficult, right? And
Right.
like for years, I didn't even sleep with my phone next to me.
Yeah.
It was in the bathroom or even downstairs, and I had, our hatch alarm. But then with the baby, and the Nana and
Yeah.
everything, the monitor seasons change, right?
Right.
But like, it's also like I know when I need to call myself out for scrolling, late, and
Yeah.
then it's the whole thing. And that's, to me, I think at the end of the day too, we as society, like we've lost the sense of just vegging out.
Yeah.
We've lost the sense of allowing that to be okay. And I mean, I'm coming off of it because
Mhm.
I didn't even see that I was being just so like intense with myself,
Yeah.
right? Because that intensity is also like I like being scheduled. I think
Right.
we as humans, we do like knowing what's
Mhm.
coming and we know the things that make us feel good. And so being able to pack those in can be really helpful. But like we also have to make sure that we're scheduling that time of downtime of like, hey, like I am just going to watch some Netflix or I am
Mhm.
going to read a book. Like I'm reading a book right now that has nothing to do with health and wellness, that has
Right.
nothing to do with bettering myself, that has nothing to do with motherhood or relationships or anything like that. It is literally about nothing. Do
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And
When it's
I am
allowing yourself
loving
to have
it.
that
Yes.
playtime. And
Right.
I actually
Yes.
had a photo shoot, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and the photographer is 63 years old, and I'm like, "You look fantastic. Like, you are just super fit, you seem
Yeah.
healthy, you have so much energy, you're so fun and spunky." She's like, "I just play." She's like,
That,
"I don't schedule workouts for myself. I eat balance," as
yeah.
she was saying. Like,
Yeah.
I know what my body needs as far as nourishment goes, and I make sure that I am active and I play daily, literally play.
Yeah.
And I love that because I think we forget. It's like, and playing doesn't mean you have to get down and build blocks with your kids.
Right.
That's also great and very beneficial and healthy. But finding something that you enjoy, reading a book that has nothing to do, because you can overdo it. Like, I've been through this whole healing journey. You can very much overdo it with, it can become an addiction, just like drugs
Yes.
or alcohol,
Yes.
healing or health and fitness. I mean, I've had an exercise addiction for probably 20 years,
Yeah.
if not
Yeah.
longer.
Well, and that's anything.
And I
Too much
don't
of a good
anymore.
thing can become a bad thing. Right. And
Exactly.
so I think it's like also like this year, a big thing that came through for me was like, how many more times do I have to learn something until I accept it?
Right.
Right.
And
And
when am
so,
I willing to see it for what it is and
right.
not judge it
And not
and
judge
not
it
just
and just
observe it and not judge myself for it.
100%. Where like
Yeah.
I will say to my girls, I'm like, stop being Judge Judy with yourself and just
Yes.
observe what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you get off this call and you eat a box of Cheez-Its. It's like my kryptonite,
Yeah.
and that's what I said. I'm like, I just need you to write it down. Like, I just
Right.
need you to write down what's happening.
Mhm.
But it's like, just like get away from this almost like, it's like I love being a student, but sometimes a student being that forever student has also perpetuated just wasted time in a
Mhm.
way because it's also like, hey, what if I just accept this about myself and I take that acceptance and I just try to change the trajectory? Like you're talking
Mhm.
about waking up at 5:45. I was bringing Zamora to the gym,
Mhm.
Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, depending on the week. And she kind of hit this spot where she was just like, Mommy, no gym. And I'm like, oh
Oh
my
god.
God. Okay. Like, but
Heck
you've got
yeah.
your friends. What do you mean? Like we go through roll call where we've got, all her friends at the gym because we all go at the
Yeah.
same time. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll go back old school where I'll go early morning. I
Mhm.
used to do that before, even all throughout my pregnancy. I would
Right.
go, and then I'd do my sunrise walks and
Mhm.
whole thing. And, I was doing that and it was tough. It was
Mhm.
really tough to do that, but I did it because I really prioritized that time for myself.
Right.
And my husband was just like, listen, I'm never going to not tell you to go do that. But he's like, I just can't go back to bed after, even when you ninja out of
Right.
the room.
I
And,
know, my husband's the same way.
I've got my clothes laid out and I brush my teeth downstairs. And, he's like, I just can't go to back to bed. And this is back to what we were talking about before we started filming was like, now what we've been doing the past few weeks is I go to the gym when he gets home from work. And
Mhm.
so, depending on the day, we kind of like high five out. Great. Okay. You've
Mhm.
got the baby. And it's just like asking for that help and just accepting that, like, hey, what once worked for you maybe just isn't working anymore. Or maybe
Right.
you just got to get creative and maybe you just got to accept
Mhm.
the season that you're in now, knowing that in a couple months from now, it's probably going to change again and it's okay. Like cozy up to the chaos. That's one of the core principles, core concepts that I really talk about in my work with clients is because it's like chaos is going to happen.
Right.
It's just going to happen. And so who are you going to be in those chaotic times? And like, how are you going to let all of these other things either support you or, break you down. And like, it's a journey. Each time it becomes different because you become different, you know?
Right. And it's really about, for me, surrendering to the flow of what that
Mm,
new season, that new chapter looks like.
totally.
Like we could fight it, but what is that going to do? It's going to create anxiety. It's going to create or do something that's not honoring what we need.
Hmm.
And I think as a parent especially, you have to learn to pivot. And you have things scheduled and your kid's sick. Well, what do? We automatically clear the calendar and
Right.
we're just there, we're present.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that for ourselves? That's the like,
That,
why can't we do that for ourselves? Because we start to judge ourselves and
yeah.
we start to
Yeah.
feel like we're missing out on something. But give yourself permission
Yeah.
to honor what you need. And if you're not sure of what you need, get a coach.
Yeah.
Have an accountability partner. Have
Yeah.
a talk therapist. Have a friend. Have
Yeah.
someone in your network
Just
that
get
you
it out of
can
your head.
get it out of your
Talk
head.
to
Someone. Write it down. Talk to
Yeah.
yourself out loud.
Yeah.
Take a walk. Just something to bring you back. So getting to that, what are the things, and I've explained this on millions of podcasts, I feel like, but how do you bring yourself back to kind of rooting yourself back into your body when you are a product of that chaos that we were
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think a few things, and again, it's really dependent on like where it is that I'm at. But for me, I really notice I process through movement. That
Mhm.
was a really big thing for me. I grew up an athlete. And so for me, all almost always, like, I can't ever actually think back to a time where, like, I didn't go for a walk and automatically didn't feel better,
Same.
because I get so in my head that, like, I have to get outside to get outside of myself,
Same.
and that, science shows too, we activate that parasympathetic nervous
Mhm.
system, and we show our bodies that we're not in that fight or flight mode and that everything is okay. But for me, like, I really have to make sure I'm getting that movement in. And I really recharge on that alone time. I'm an only child. And so, like, for me, sometimes I have to kind of just take a beat and like get a coffee. And
Yeah.
like, even if it's just simple, like, I think that really helps me. And then also, too, like, having that time though connecting, like, it's connecting to myself and then really connecting to others where
Right.
this was like a newer thing where part of my social siesta was because I finally hit that point, and I did a little one last summer too, and then I feel like I'm just almost coming out of it this year. But I really hit that like Zoom fatigue
Yeah.
where I like seeing you in person, or like when I see you at the gym, or I see like,
Mhm.
all like people in real life that like I need to see like the wrinkles on someone's face and like the way someone smiles. And like
Yeah.
I'm such a people person that, when the world shut down, my business took off.
Mhm.
And then I was so Zoom back to back to back to back to back to back to back, like most people. And then I got pregnant, and then I was in baby world. And then it's like, okay, cool. I'm coming out of that postpartum, like, awesome. I'm craving connection. So
Right.
that is where like I will literally look at my husband. I'm like, can we go on a date night and like just
Yes.
go, go see live music, go get a drink, go eat a meal, and like
Yeah.
chat, and like really prioritizing my friend time. Like, I have not, like, this past year has been such a transformative year for me, but like my girlfriends are legitimately everything to me. And so we're scattered all over,
Mhm.
but like really doing my due diligence to like voice text like a 7-minute long thing
Yeah.
if I can't get with them, or do girls night, or grab coffee, or really making sure that I am prioritizing that time. And like through those things of like a walk, and I do love a workout,
Mhm.
having some me time, and then having that connection, whether it's with my husband, whether it's my mom or my girlfriends, like that all in all will somehow piece me back together. But it's when I do too much of something where I end
Mhm.
up isolating, and then I end up getting in my own head.
Yeah.
And then where like the world feels like it's crumbling down. And so I
Mhm.
think it's again really learning that about yourself though too, where it's like too much of anything is not good anymore,
Right.
and really accepting that, and asking for help. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
like I said, like it was no big deal for me to just, be like, hey, what do you think about this? If we like high five and you take the baby and I just go to the gym and then come back, do dinner or whatever it is, it was no big deal for my mom to help me with certain things. It was no like people in your life want to help you, but it's
Right.
you that's actually getting in the way.
Yeah. We have to get out of our own way
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. And I think the last thing is Netflix. Like
Yeah.
I love me some Netflix. Like when Suits ended, like when I finished Suits, I was like questioning my identity. I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? So like I'll get really into a show, but those things. And I think that that's it, right? Like we're multifaceted. We're not just this one, like our identity has many different parts, and
100%.
and I think figuring out those things, and that's, I have all my girls do that same thing. Like, what makes you feel good? Start a running list of like, when you feel your best, what's happening? What are you listening to? Like, I've always got John Mayer, Dave Matthews Band in the background, or when I'm cooking, it's Frank Sinatra. Like, elevating, romanticizing your own life, and like being mindful of like, what makes me feel good?
Right.
And just doing those simple things. You don't need to. And like, I think it's funny too. Like Instagram's a funny place. Not that I don't love the red light masks and the sauna blanket. Like I recommend the sauna blankets and the this and that, like all those things. But we see these nightly routines and these morning routines and the this and the that. And then you kind of question yourself like, okay, well, what happens when the baby woke up early? I missed my workout. I didn't get to the grocery store and all those things. Like, who are you without all those things?
Right. Or who are you when your routine, like you said, day is broken?
Right.
Like, what do you do?
Right.
Like, how do you handle that?
Yes.
And going back to the observe it, like, okay, this is my day, just from a very factual point. This is the time that I have. But not judging yourself because you haven't done all those other things.
100%.
And just being like, okay, well, I have time to take a bath by myself. And that's okay.
Yes.
Like I got to the point, like
and
when Brody was first born.
Yes.
When he was little, no TV at all, just because like
I'm the same.
He's not one to watch it. But now that he's 4, I'm like, it's not gonna kill him to watch a half-hour show, so I can do something or have it like a few minutes to journal and sit out on the porch or have that time. And again, because why was I resisting in the first place? Because I was judging myself. Thinking like, okay, 30 minutes, like he's the most active kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's all over the place all the time.
Yeah.
It's not
lives a
gonna
great
hurt
life.
him. And like, where was that coming? I was judging myself.
But and that's where we can go though, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I found that same exact thing where I'm just like, hey, 30 minutes of, Miss Rachel is okay because it is just, it's okay. And like really allowing yourself to not be this like perfect ideal version of you 24/7.
That doesn't exist.
Right. Or if it maybe does, you're going to run. Like I was running myself into a wall trying to chase the like one perfect day where every single thing happened and then feeling bad about it. It's like, for what? My mom literally, she said that this was like, it literally changed everything for me. I was having just like a really hard time. And she said, when I was younger, her name is Jill. My mom's name is Jill. And she said, when I was younger and I was, you're trying to do everything like you. She was like, I had a friend. And she said to me, where did my friend Jill go?
Right.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I stopped having fun. Along the way, and I didn't even realize
so did
it
I for a while.
And that's like your, photographer, 63 years old. Yeah. She's playing. She's so busy playing. And so I said to my therapist, I said, I'm at my best when I'm having fun. Yes. If you know me in real life, like I got in trouble for school because I was laughing when I wasn't supposed to, and I was too loud, and I was this, and I was that. Like, if you know me, like, that that's how I've always been.
Yeah.
And like somewhere along the way, society or the becoming an adult or the pressures or the this or the trying or the hustle culture, whatever it is, I stopped having fun. And then that can also come into motherhood where it's like, no, I'm never going to be the mom that's going to just plop her kid and watch TV all day. Right. You're never going to be that mom either. No. That's not who we are. Right. But like, it's okay. Like it was actually the most magical moment when it was like a thunderstorm, basically category 1 hurricane last week randomly.
Snuggle and watch movies.
Yes, me, Lucas, and Zamora watched Coco And we were just like, this is the best ever. I was like, I forgot that I had this dream of like watching a Disney movie with my baby. And like we have to stop letting this subconscious thought, I think, of perfect drive us into this direction that you're never going to find it.
No.
Ever. And
it's that external, it's like seeking that external validation because inside you're lacking something.
Totally.
And so really taking a step back and going inward and being like, what is it that I need? Is it the fun? Is it the play? Is it the nutrients that I need in my body? Totally. Is it more water? Is it like, I go back to like when I talk to Brody, do you need a hug? Do you need a snack? Or do you need a nap? Like I have to ask myself, do I need a hug? Do I need a snack? Or do I need a nap? And that's okay. Yes. And sometimes it's all of the above.
Yes. We complicate it.
Yes. We complicate it so much.
All of it. You know? Yes. 100%.
So 100%. Back to the macros, to the food stuff.
Yeah.
So I get asked very often, and actually my husband is now a vegetarian.
Okay.
And I've gone through my bouts when I was regulating hormones and stuff like that. And the time period we were talking about prior to the podcast, I lost so much weight because for the first time in my life, I wasn't eating high protein.
Yeah.
So I just felt very weak. I felt very vulnerable. It was not for me.
Yeah. You can check that off the list. Like I tried. One more thing I tried.
It was really great, but my body does thrive. And I do generally like protein. I'm kind of funky where I get it from. Just because of our food sources are scary. They're scary. Whole different podcast.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for our plant-based listeners as far as their protein goes?
Yeah.
For getting the adequate amount with balancing those type of macros. Obviously, it's very individual for each person, but just a general.
Yeah. I've had a few vegetarian clients, and you know, it's really, again, looking at what those protein options are. Fish is phenomenal. You know, I really am a big fan of fish. So whether, you know, pick your fancy in that and like really try to make sure that you're prioritizing wild caught if possible, you know, the sustainable choices for, you know, definitely like a dinner option. I feel like dinner can sometimes be tricky, but especially when we're thinking about your day as a whole, like really getting a quality protein powder that isn't going to be, you know, grass-fed beef, like the one that I use.
Right.
So, you know.
We have a couple of good plant-based ones. Epic Protein that we get at Crop Juice. That's a really good one. You can also get it on Amazon. Truvia is pretty clean.
The Truvani?
Or Truvani.
Yeah,
yes.
Truvani. Yep.
Pretty clean. There's also Koya shakes that are pretty good macro. They're not perfect as far as being super clean, but I think that's something too that just check the ingredients. Like if you've started something new. In your plan, or you've been having something and you find that you get a little bit more anxious or your energy shifts when you're eating certain foods, just check the ingredients. There might be something in there. Like I realized last year I'm allergic to eggs.
Interesting.
Devastating because I was getting so bloated. I'm like, why am I getting so bloated?
Do you get a food all test the time? Done, or do you do elimination
diet? Through my functional medicine doctor, I got this whole Dr. Stephanie McKay.
Oh, I don't know her. I saw
she's
Dr.
great. She
Dana
actually specializes in hormonal health too.
Okay, cool.
So I started seeing her, I think like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, when I was the thyroid after pregnancy, balancing the thyroid.
Which again is so common for any mamas.
And
postpartum thyroid
35,
issues
so
are
it's
very common.
Oh, 100%.
I didn't know that.
Well, and just thyroid issues in general are common because of all the environmental stuff we have in our body. Again, whole other thing. But I did a blood test.
A blood test.
So I did a blood test and I'm allergic to nothing other than like eggs and egg whites. And I'm like, are you kidding? And I was eating them every meal.
I love eggs.
So do I. And I miss them. But she had a good point. So I've essentially eliminated them for the most part because I am like an omelet. I mean, I could like eat an omelet every meal of the day.
Yeah.
Like every meal of the day. I miss them. I love them.
Oh my gosh.
And the substitutes, I just try not to do substitute-y stuff because it's just never the same. And I feel like it's filled with gunk.
Just ingredients. Yeah.
But that, like understanding what your body tolerates.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
But she also made a good point is it could be the way that eggs are processed. Believe it or not, eggs are processed.
Yes. Yes.
So I started getting them from a local farm and every now and then I'll eat it and I'm okay. But it's not like I'm going to Starbucks and getting egg bites, which would wreck my stomach, but there's other stuff in there.
Right.
So that's one thing I really want to stress to people too is just pay attention to the ingredients
That's like that's like we do pantry purge, we do
Yeah.
closet cleanse. I mean, we do the whole clean out of your cabinet,
Okay.
feel good fridge, feel good pantry. Like, I
I
mean,
love that.
it freezer, all of it. Because I have it very simple. If you cannot pronounce it, your body will have no idea what to do with it.
Well, and that's the thing.
It
People
is
don't
that
realize,
simple.
or like the sugar freeze or the low this. It's like
Yes.
you're better off having whatever the natural ingredient
Whole
is.
food, real
Yes,
food.
whole real food.
Yeah.
Maple syrup is not going to kill you.
Right.
The sugar free, the light stuff,
The
aspartame, all the things. Your
Yes.
body just doesn't know how to process
Well,
it. Have
and
you heard
that
of the book Good Energy?
Yes, I'm with Dr. Casey Means.
Yes.
So, I used to so she co-founded Levels,
Mhm.
which is a continuous glucose monitor
Yeah.
that I would wear and I have my clients wear to learn about food. And so the fact I've been following her for years.
Okay.
And the fact that she's blowing up right now literally makes me so happy. She is incredible. And just for our readers, our listeners, she was a doctor and basically, left
Yeah.
because she was like, I am not helping people get better.
No. She wanted to
And
get the root of the inflammation.
Yes.
And as our Western medicine, they're trained to just focus on certain areas.
Oh, yeah.
But our body is a whole. Like it's
I've
a
literally
certain-
worked with doctors before
Yes.
as clients,
Yeah.
pediatricians
Oh,
as
yeah.
clients because they're like, she's like, I took this for 12 hours.
Mhm.
I was taught 12 hours of nutrition and I'm overweight. I feel like crap. I need help. As client,
Yeah.
and it's like, it is that's their job is to treat sick people. Their
Right.
job isn't to make this, get down to that underlying root of the issue. So
Which was the
that's
root, I think, of them wanting to be a doctor is to truly
Total-
help the
yeah.
all-encompassing
yeah.
human body.
Yeah. So Dr. Casey Means, she's amazing. The continuous glucose monitor Levels is a tech company that it really kind of shows you. It allows people to learn how foods affect you. So when we talked about blood sugar earlier on in the
Right.
podcast, when you eat carbohydrates, those carbohydrates get broken down into glucose.
Mhm.
We all have a different type of carb ceiling, as I like to call it, where we're able a different amount of carbs can be tolerated for different amount of people depending on, are you strength training? Are you just working out? How much muscle mass do you have on your body? How much are you moving throughout the day? All of these types of things, where a continuous glucose monitor, like Levels, you put it on your arm and it literally shows you in real time how your food impacts you. How when you were waking up, we naturally have that cortisol that's called the dawn effect that wakes us up. And so by you naturally waking up around that time and then you also going to super hardcore hit classes, it's not that HIIT's bad, but we only need it sprinkled in. We don't want
Right.
that to be the foundation of our training.
Right.
And, because it's just too much. It's just too
Right.
much. And so you're really able to see through your blood how these choices are affecting you, what it's like for you, even if you eat a late meal at night, what it's like for you, how your sleep gets affected, and then what you crave the next day. And so she's incredible. And like I said, I'm just so happy her work has been blowing up for years, because even my husband, she was just on the Tucker Carlson podcast and that blew up, and is one of those things where he's like, you've been talking about her for a long time. I was
Well,
like,
and that's what I figured you had, because it really
yeah.
coincides with essentially like the fundamentals of your approach.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good resource out there if you guys want to understand a little bit more the Good Energy.
Amazing book.
Yes.
It will change your whole perspective.
It really did.
Yeah.
And like what underlying causes could be, like whether it's blood glucose, whether it's autoimmune, and there was
It's all
just so
hand
many
in
different
hand.
factors that go into that. I feel like at some point we should gather and do like a retreat on all this. I think it would be amazing.
1000%, because it all just goes hand in hand. And even
100%.
vegetarian, just to finish that up
Yeah.
too, if it's no matter where you're at, you have to eat. So let's figure
Right.
out how can we really fill your plate with what it is that we need? And we may have to get a little bit more creative, And so, yes, clean protein powder, can you do cottage cheese, dairy to really supplement that out? Even, we do know that plant-based sources like lentils, black beans, quinoa, legumes, those types of things do have protein in them, even though they're more carbohydrate heavy. And so that's where too, it's like some of the training maybe needed to be tweaked a little bit more, where that person, they totally should be working out a little bit harder, like you definitely have Matt be like, babe, up those weights a little bit, because you can handle it when you are,
because you have those more carbohydrates in your body and your body needs to use them. It's like you don't overfill your car with gas.
Right.
To drive it. Yeah. Because if you do, even if it's clean, like it's still a surplus.
Yeah. And so I think too, it's just about really getting clear about, hey, where can I get that protein from? Right. And also, I do, again, feel like all I tell my clients is like, I just need you to do this one time. Because if I can have someone do it one time, they are able to reap the benefits of what it feels like. And then that's how we create the momentum of them really being able to be like, oh my God, that felt good. Right. And it wasn't so hard. Right. And then that's where it's like, okay, cool. Like eventually there's so many sessions that go on where it's like, oh yeah. And the food's great this week. I had, one thing, at my mom's house, but it was fine. And then I just moved on. I started the next day. And it's like, we're talking about the life stuff. We're talking about great. Like, how can we make you, like have that hard conversation with your boss to bring in that work-life balance more, or like, great, let's get you a walking pad so that you can get your steps in. And then your boss can be like, oh my God, which one are you going to order? Cause I want that too. Right. Like, and that's a really kind of getting comfortable with these conversations, because this is a very real problem. And just because people aren't talking about it doesn't mean they're not facing it.
Exactly. And that, like you said, it opens the opportunity for other people to prioritize their own health as well. So don't be scared to say you need help, or that you are prioritizing your piece, or you are going to take an extra day off, because it might inspire that next person to be like, wow, I should probably do that too. Yeah. Or cancel that meeting if it doesn't serve you, or that event if it doesn't serve you, because those people might be inspired by that.
Well, and that's like, even you with Tatum of just, being like, I'm going to lounge out. Like, you're showing her lounging out's okay.
Yeah. And it's important. And it's okay to give your brain
a
rest.
We're not robots.
Right.
That's why it's, even the babies that, I was just on the phone with my best friend this morning. She has a 4-month-old. She's like, she didn't sleep last night. She woke up at 3:30 to eat, but I knew that she was hungry. I was like, that's totally okay.
Yeah, she's growing.
She is not a robot, and neither are you.
Yep.
And it's like, we have to remind ourselves of that. And it's like, no matter what season you're in, it's, yes, we have got all of these resources. We have all of these people who mean, well, but there is such thing as information overload. And there 100%. Is such thing as like striving for perfection when it just doesn't exist, and have the autonomy to be like, okay, does this make me feel good, or does this just make me feel worse?
So if our listeners and guests want to find you, I will put the link in, but tell them a little bit about like your overview, feelgoodwitherica.com.
Yes, feelgoodwitherica.com. And you can shoot me an email, hey@feelgoodwitherica.com. If you want to learn more. I work primarily with one-on-one clients. And so that was really how I started my business, and the work that I really love to do, again, with that connection. And then last year I started my group coaching program, which has been so, so, so fun. And I hosted 4 rounds last year. And then I think I'm just going to, I'm going to see where this year takes us. I can't believe it's already, September when we're filming this. I'm like, how did that happen? And so I definitely would love, if you are interested in a group course, definitely reach out. The Feel Good Foundation is really what the framework is that I do with my one-on-one clients, but it is in a group coaching format where, when I'm working with a one-on-one client, I say, listen, I know if you can commit 8 sessions, I can teach you everything that you need to know and learn, ideally. And I've been able to condense that into the 6 sessions just without it being so personalized. And so it's a 6-week program. And, I teetered on, okay, am I going to do it, live? Am I going to do it recorded? And I have it all recorded, but I will say there's nothing like that live in person or in Zoom even. Do you know what I mean? Where you
Yeah.
kind of feel like you're together, where you're able to ask questions and connect and really just get the help that you need. Have someone who knows what it is that you're up against teach you the things that you just don't have time in your busy
Right.
life to go do all this research, And
Yeah.
so, whether it's one-on-one work or group coaching, you can reach out and find me at feelgoodwitherica.com. And I would just love to connect. So
Thank you. And tagging on to that, and it builds that sense of community and accountability, which is what we
yes.
all need and all
Yes.
appreciate. So thank you so
Yes.
much for
Oh my
joining me today.
God.
I feel like
Thank you,
we could do like 3 more
Krystel.
hours,
Yes.
but we'll save
Yes.
it for a
Thank
couple
you.
more podcasts. So
100%. Thank you so
thanks so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.